So, good morning, everyone. It's already 5 minutes. So, let's get started. So, today I'll be talking about the psychology of design, basically, the importance of human psychology in design. How does it help us in making better experiences for people? So, before we go ahead, it's better to understand what is user experience. This is important for those who are very new to this term, and the people who already know, it's still good to recap what is user experience design. So, this is me. I'm Manpreet, and I have been into experience design for like a number of years. And I am a user experience design consultant and strategist. I work for different companies, businesses, and help them develop experiences for products and services. Now let's get started with the experience, because experience. So when we talk about experience is everywhere. We know because we are human and we interact with a lot of people. We use a lot of products. We use a lot of services. So at each interaction point, at each touch point, what we do, we are experiencing something. It could be bad, it could be good, it could be neutral, but we are experiencing because we are human. So experience is everywhere. And when I talk about experience, I categorize that into three different types. So one is the brand experience, the second is the customer experience, and the third is the user experience. So when I talk about the brand, so brand is the company as a whole, how you feel when you interact with that brand. For example, you buy a product. So do you have confidence on the products that you buy from them, or you are not sure like whether the product will be good or not? So if you are very confident, then the brand has a good experience. So that is basically based on the values of the company. It's basically the culture, how they treat their customers, how they make their product, the efforts that they put to improve the experiences and the interaction. That is at the very high level brand experience. Comes next is the customer experience. Customer experience, it includes the brand experience, but there are other aspects to it. So it includes how the customer service is, how the people like working for the company treat you when you go to them to buy the product. How are the different channels, whether it's a web, whether it's mobile app, how's the experience on that? So everything around that. That is customer experience. Now, the main and the core is the user experience, and that is where the user designer plays a big role. So when I talk about user experience, it is basically the digital interaction between user, like we as a person when we use different products. It could be like physical product, digital product. It could be a mobile app, intranet website, or a normal website. So how a user interacts, how he feels when he is interacting with the product. So it could be device, it could be because of the visual design, it could be because of the content or the messaging on the application. So basically the interaction between the user and the device and the application or the system, what we call it as. So that is basically called as the user experience. And today I'll be talking more about the user experience and also about the human psychology that affects the designs. We can understand this with the help of an example. So what I've done is like I've taken the example of a restaurant. Everyone must have experienced the restaurant, like everyone has been to restaurants. Let's take the restaurant as a product and see like how we feel when we interact with the restaurant. So there are different things that affects the experience. So it is one is like as soon as you walked in, how did you feel? Whether you were welcomed properly, greetings were exchanged or not. That is an important element of the experience. The next is, did you get the seat or you had to wait for a long before you got the seat? The other could be the menu arranged. Was it very confusing? Was it very easy to find what you wanted and easy to order? And once you ordered, did you get the food quickly? And how did it taste? How was the customer experience? Were the waiters serving you properly? They were listening to your request, customizing as and when what were required. And once you were done with everything, how easy was it for you to make the payment? So these were the different interactions, like the very common interaction that happens when you go to a restaurant. And there could be very high and lows, but the overall experience or the emotional highs and lows when you interacted with them is basically the experience. So when we talk about the experience, it's basically when you're interacting with the product. So here in this case, it's restaurant and the emotions and the feelings that you got out of it. So that's the experience. So before I move ahead and talk more about the experience and the human psychology, it's good to coin this particular term, user experience. So user experience was coined by Don Norman. He's regarded as the father of user experience. And he did this when he was working in Apple, and it was around 1993. So at present, he is the director of the design lab at University of California, San Diego. And I recommend you read his book, The Design of Everyday Things, if you really want to get into user experience and learn how the human psychology affects the process of designing the experience. So what is experience. What is user experience? If you have to define that, it is the process of creating user interactions. So here what is involved is the interaction, and the interaction happen between two things. So one is we as a user, we work with some system. It could be like any digital system or a physical system. So it could be a physical product or a camera, so on. What is the experience that you derive when working with that? Is the user experience. So if we talk, or if we try to explain in a simple word, it is basically deals with the user, and it also deals with the product. Because when you're working on user experience as a UX designer, who is at the center? The user is at the center. We work and create all design keeping user centricity in mind. We design for them. So in this case, when we were talking about the restaurants, so what was the experience? So the experience was the taste, was the service that was given to you, and how the food was presented. So everything together makes up the experience. So here the product was the restaurant, you were the customers or the users, and for people, the experience could vary. Some would have experienced good, might have good experience, while the others might have bad. It might be neutral for them. So this is the experience if you try to explain with the help of an example. Whether it was good, bad, or neutral, it depended upon different factors. The factors are basically whether you like that product, like the restaurant in this case, you like the food, and you understood the food. Means the food tasted good or not. And how was it? It was easy to eat, it was well cooked, and so on. So till now what I've done is I've talked about the user experience as a term, what it means. And going further, what I'll do, I'll talk about the processes that we basically follow when doing the design. And there are different processes, and different people follow different processes. But the most important and the most famous or the most used ones are one is called as the double diamond user experience process. It is coined by the British Design Council. And here what they have done is process of experience design. They have divided that into different phases. So primarily the 4 phases. So basically what you do is you have a problem statement. What you do is then discover what is the problem. You try to find out, dig deep into the problem statement. You go and talk with the people. You try to ask them different questions. You even do your own research. It could be qualitative and quantitative to get more insights into the problem. And once you get this, what you do is you go back to the table. You start defining and trying to find out what are the reasons of the problem, and also try to find out the answers to those problems. You do meetings with your people, you go back to your users, you again try to interact with them, and then try writing user stories, use cases. Then in the next phase, you develop that solution, test it, and then deliver it to the customers. So this is the basic process. So this is the process that's followed by British Design Council and is widely used. The other is the IDEO's human-centered design process. Here also the process kind of the same, but here they have divided this into 3 different parts. One is the inspiration, that is where they find the problem. Ideation is where they try to solve the problem, and implementation is the final delivery of the solution to the users. There are other process, and this is called as the design thinking process. It again it follows the same process but divided into different stages. So empathize is basically understanding the user, the problem statement, defining what could be done, ideating on that, and then creating a prototype or a product and going out to the user and testing it. So again, it's the same. And when we talk about this user experience, see in any company, or when you talk with general people say okay, so you are the designer, you are the sole person responsible for the user experience. But it's not like that. So the whole team is responsible for user experience. So it could be project manager. Everyone should have a better understanding, good understanding of how to deliver usable products. So the person who is researching, the researcher, the business analyst, he should write use cases in a manner that is useful, that is logical. Similarly, the information architect, he should define the architecture of the application in a way makes sense. Developer should make solution that really works on different platforms. So product owner should know the requirements that the user needs. Similarly, the interaction designer, visual designer, UX designer, copywriter, they should make a solution that is useful, simple. So when we talk about these people, so these are the generalists and the specialists. So people on the right who really work on the interaction design, the visual design, and user experience, the defining the process and the flows, and even the copy. So these are the people who specialize, but the others are also part of the process, and they should also know about user experience and also the human psychology. The UX, the role of the UX here is to the proper alignment between all the team members and meet the needs of the users as well as the business. Whatever product, whatever services we define, it's for the user. So user is the key here. And as a UX designer, since we are interacting with people, we design for them. We create the products for them.